Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The courtroom was silent, almost stifling. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the polished wooden benches and the tense faces of the spectators. In the center, a white police officer, his torso erect and his chin raised, testified confidently before the judge. "Agent Jonathan Reynolds, Madam, I assure you that this woman resisted arrest and threatened the officers." A murmur ran through the room. All eyes were on the black woman sitting facing the courtroom, calm, motionless, as if every word Reynolds said slid past her without reaching her. Few knew she was no ordinary civilian. Her gaze, deep and sure, betrayed a far greater experience than that of the police officer judging her. This woman, Nadia Williams, was a retired Navy SEAL commander. Her military exploits, high-risk missions, and prestigious decorations remained invisible at that precise moment. Reynolds, confident in his story, had no idea that he had attacked one of the most formidable and respected figures in the American military. The court would soon discover the truth. And when it was revealed, no one, not even Reynolds, would be able to ignore the strength and dignity of Nadia Williams. Night was falling slowly over the city. Nadia Williams, tired but relaxed, was returning home after a long visit to her family. Her car rolled calmly along the avenue, her hands lightly gripping the steering wheel, her eyes attentive to the traffic. Suddenly, the blue and red flashing lights illuminated the road. She slowed down and pulled over to the shoulder. The officer Jonathan Reynolds walked towards his vehicle, his face closed. "Reynolds, good evening, madam. We have received calls reporting suspicious behavior. Please step out of your car." Nadia remained calm, her voice calm but firm. "Nadia, Officer Reynolds, I'm just driving home. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Reynolds ignored her request, his eyes showing blatant arrogance. He took a step forward and pointed an accusing finger. "Reynolds, don't give me orders. You have resisted our instructions and endangered officers. Come down immediately." Nadia slowly opened the door, her movements measured, demonstrating complete control. Her military medals discreetly pinned to her blazer were invisible to Reynolds, but they symbolized a career marked by courage and discipline. Neighbors watched, some taking photos. Yet, despite the intimidation and false accusations, Nadia remained motionless and silent. Reynolds's every move, every word, clashed with her unshakable dignity. At that moment, none of the passers-by could imagine the truth. The woman they saw being accused was Commander Nadia Williams, one of the nation's most respected and decorated Navy SEALs. And that arrest, based on a lie and prejudice, would soon be confronted with a truth far greater than Reynolds could ever have imagined. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. The benches were filled with onlookers, reporters, and family members who had come to witness the case. Nadia Williams sat upright, her face calm, as Officer Jonathan Reynolds stepped forward to testify. Judge Thompson, a man with a stern look, banged his gavel to ask for silence. "Judge Thompson, Agent Reynolds, you are under oath. Recount the events of last night." Reynolds stood up, his chest out, his voice full of confidence. "Reynolds, Your Honor, the suspect resisted arrest, refused to cooperate, and threatened our officers." A murmur rippled through the room. Journalists scribbled feverishly in their notebooks, some whispering about Nadia's supposedly aggressive behavior. Neighbors and passers-by who had witnessed the arrest were perplexed. The images and videos showed a calm and cooperative woman. The defense attorney, Me Carter, adjusted his glasses and stood up. "Me Carter, Agent Reynolds, can you confirm that you have correctly identified the suspect?" Reynolds hesitated, a brief flash of concern crossing his eyes. "Reynolds, yes, she was a black woman, very hostile." Carter immediately sensed the discrepancy. The videos showed otherwise, and Nadia's body language spoke of complete control. But for now, the audience didn't know this woman's true identity. Nadia remained silent, watching Reynolds's every move. She knew her career and reputation could not be judged by the lies of one man. Her patience and strategy would soon transform this courtroom into a scene of revelation. And behind this apparent calm, a dazzling truth was waiting to emerge. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Every word Reynolds spoke seemed to add a layer of nervousness to the audience. Yet some watched with skepticism. Mee Carter, the defense attorney, stood up, his eyes carefully scrutinizing the police officer. Mee Carter, Agent Reynolds, can you clarify what you mean by hostile? Was she armed? Did she physically threaten anyone? Reynolds frowned, searching for words. Reynolds, well, she resisted our instructions, and her attitude was defiant. A murmur rippled through the room. The journalists exchanged incredulous glances. Some spectators began to wonder if the police officer was distorting the facts. At that moment, a former military acquaintance sitting in the audience leaned toward a colleague. Wait, that's her, isn't it? Nadia Williams? Navy SEALs? Other spectators, alerted by the whisper, glanced over at Nadia. Her calm demeanor and commanding posture seemed too controlled to match Reynolds's description. Even the way she looked at the officer with quiet confidence seemed to defy her lie. Mr. Carter continued. Mee Carter, your statements contradict the available video evidence. Can you explain this contradiction, Agent Reynolds? Reynolds wavered slightly. The audience was beginning to sense doubt. What if this police officer had lied? The credibility of his testimony was now in doubt. Nadia, impassive, let a silence hang. This calm wasn't fear, but strategic anticipation. She knew that the public's disbelief would be the first step toward revealing her true identity and Reynolds's lie. The murmur in the room grew louder. A few spectators, mainly former military personnel and current affairs enthusiasts, began to exchange surprised glances. That's Nadia Williams, right? The Navy SEALs? Impossible, here, in this courtroom? Nadia sat upright, her hands calmly resting on her knees, never taking her eyes off Agent Reynolds. Her face expressed complete self-possession, but behind her eyes shone a light that announced that the truth would soon come out. Reynolds, ignoring the whispers, continued his story, repeating that the suspect had resisted and threatened the officers. But with each word, his confidence wavered imperceptibly. Skeptical glances turned toward the judge, who frowned, noting that the testimony didn't match the available evidence. A military spectator whispered in a low voice. If this is her, this woman has led high-risk missions abroad. She's decorated, and no one here realizes who they're dealing with. The journalists' cameras captured the contrast, a woman sitting calmly, almost intimidating in her presence, facing a police officer who was beginning to lose his composure. The doubt sown by the audience was growing, and the atmosphere was becoming charged with anticipation. Nadia knew the moment was approaching. All it took was one word, one piece of evidence, for the shadow of her military past to envelop the courtroom and expose Reynolds's lies. And when that moment came, no witness, no officer, would be able to ignore the depths of her experience and authority. A heavy silence fell over the room. The whispers had ceased, replaced by an electric anticipation. Nadia stood slowly, each movement measured, imbued with calm and power. All eyes turned toward her. Nadia, in a firm and calm voice. I am Commander Nadia Williams, a retired Navy SEAL officer. I have led high-risk missions, and I can prove, through official documents and video, that your accusations, Agent Reynolds, are false. The courtroom seemed to freeze. Reynolds instantly paled. The spectators, the reporters, the judge himself, were speechless. How could a simple witness underestimate this woman? Judge Thompson. Commander Williams, you may present your evidence immediately. Nadia pulled out an official file and flash drives containing videos of her missions and rescue operations. She handed them to her lawyer, who forwarded them to the judge and Agent Reynolds. On the screens, images showed Nadia in action, leading teams under fire, coordinating rescues, and receiving decorations for her exceptional courage. Reynolds swallowed, unable to find a justification. His accusations seemed ridiculous in the face of the magnitude of the truth. Every viewer understood then the magnitude of the error. This was not an aggressive civilian, but a living legend of the American military. Nadia, impassive, stares at Reynolds. Nadia, you testified against me by lying, Agent Reynolds. Your statements are now null and void. The atmosphere changed radically. Power and respect shifted in the room. Reynolds felt his authority crumbling while Nadia embodied dignity, strength, and integrity. The moment of truth had arrived, and it would change the audience forever. The silence in the courtroom was almost religious. The screens lit up, showing videos of Nadia Williams's missions. Each image showed her precision, her leadership, and her composure in the face of extreme situations. Me Carter, the defense lawyer, intervened. Your Honor, I ask that every element presented be taken into consideration in assessing the veracity of the accusations. The judge nodded. The shocked spectators murmured quietly. Some footage showed Nadia directing complex operations, rescuing hostages, and receiving awards for exceptional courage. Reynolds, pale, tried to speak. Reynolds, this is not possible. I. But his words died in his throat. No lie, no justification could stand up to the relentless reality of the evidence. His accusations now seemed not only false, but laughable. Nadia, calm and imposing, placed a file on the judge's desk. Nadia, here are the official reports. Every event is documented. You can check my decorations, my missions, and my service. Everything I have accomplished is public and authentic. The murmurs in the room turned into gasps of surprise and awe. Reporters rushed to note every detail, realizing that the courtroom had just turned upside down. Reynolds, visibly shaking, knew his credibility was shattered. He had lied under oath and ignored the truth, and now everyone could see it. Nadia wasn't just a calm and collected woman, she was a living legend, and he had just opposed her. The judge, his gaze stern but impressed, looked up at Reynolds. Judge Thompson, Agent Reynolds, your testimony is seriously questioned. Prepare to answer for your false accusations. The courtroom had shifted. Nadia Williams's truth was coming to light, and the previously confident Reynolds realized for the first time the magnitude of his mistake. Silence reigned in the courtroom. All eyes were fixed on Reynolds, who was visibly shaken. Judge Thompson, his jaw clenched, raised his voice sternly. Judge Thompson, Agent Reynolds, you have provided sworn testimony that is false and contradictory to the evidence presented. How do you explain this discrepancy? Reynolds searched for words, his face pale, the confidence he had displayed just minutes earlier completely shattered. Reynolds, W.L. I thought that. He paused, unable to finish. Every gaze in the room was focused on him. Journalists, spectators, and even his fellow police officers sensed that his career had just changed. Nadia stood up again, her voice calm but sharp. Nadia, Agent Reynolds, you chose to lie in an attempt to discredit me. Your accusations are void. You have placed yourself above truth and justice, and that has consequences. The judge nodded. Judge Thompson, your actions will be reviewed by the police department and the court. Testimony falsification and abuse of power will not be tolerated. Reynolds swallowed, the words catching in his throat. He knew he had just lost all credibility. The entire room looked at him with a mixture of judgment and amazement. Nadia, motionless but imposing, let a heavy silence hang, symbolizing the strength of truth against the arrogance of lies. This moment marked a turning point. Authority and respect now belonged to her, and Reynolds had just realized, too late, that he had never had a hand in this matter. Judge Thompson banged his gavel, imposing absolute silence in the courtroom. The murmurs of the spectators were instantly silenced. Judge Thompson, after reviewing the compelling evidence and the defendant's testimony, it is clear that Officer Reynolds provided false testimony under oath and abused his authority. Reynolds lowered his head, unable to meet the judge's gaze. The spectators felt the depth of his fall. Arrogance and lies had just been publicly punished. Judge Thompson, Ms. Williams' arrest was unjustified. Officer Reynolds will be held accountable for his actions and his disciplinary record will be amended to include these serious violations. Any further action will be reviewed by the police department. Nadia remained standing, dignified and calm. Every word the judge spoke reinforced his imposing presence. The journalists frantically took notes, some already preparing their headlines for the evening report. A murmur ran through the audience. Finally, the truth comes out. She deserves all our respect. Nadia sat back down slowly, her face serene, knowing that justice had prevailed. Reynolds, for his part, realized that his career had just been permanently tarnished, and that his lie had only served to expose his own weakness. The courtroom had just witnessed a clear lesson: courage, truth, and integrity always triumph over arrogance and lies. Navy SEAL Commander Nadia Williams emerged from the courtroom not only victorious, but also respected by all present. Within hours of the trial, social media and local media were ablaze. Videos and photos of the hearing spread like wildfire. Headlines everywhere proclaimed the stark truth. Navy SEAL hero wrongly accused. Commander Nadia Williams triumphs over a lying police officer. Internet users praised his calm, dignity, and courage in the face of injustice. Comments poured in. She embodies true courage. Respect. Lies don't stand a chance against the truth. Bravo. In her town, Nadia received messages of support from all sides. Former military colleagues, neighbors, and even strangers came to congratulate her, some with flowers or small symbolic gestures. Her name was now associated with resilience, respect, and integrity. Agent Reynolds, for his part, was overwhelmed by the fallout. The media was reporting on his lies and abuse of power. His phone rang incessantly, each call a reminder of his irreparable mistake. For Nadia, however, all this was mere detail. Her triumph came not from sudden fame, but from restored justice and newfound respect. She knew that her calm, her experience, and her inner strength had made the difference, and that from now on, no one could ever diminish her worth or her authority. The world had seen its truth revealed, and there was no turning back. A few weeks after the trial, Nadia's life returned to normal, but nothing was the same. The entire town now knew her name and her story. Newspapers and social media continued to celebrate her calm, courage, and dignity in the face of injustice. Reynolds, meanwhile, saw his career destroyed. His lies under oath and abuse of power had been widely reported. He knew his reputation could never recover, and every person he encountered now seemed to remind him of his failure. Nadia, standing on a rooftop overlooking the city, took a deep breath. The victory wasn't just personal, it represented the truth that always triumphs, the respect due to each individual, and the strength to never give in the face of injustice. She remembered the long years she spent in the army, the impossible missions and the seemingly insurmountable challenges. And yet, it was in this simple courtroom, facing an arrogant lie, that she had once again proven her resilience and authority. She smiled slightly, knowing that this story would inspire others to stay true to themselves, to stand up for the truth, and never bow to arrogance or hatred. The lesson was clear: truth, courage, and dignity are forces that surpass all trials. And in the face of injustice, there is nothing more powerful than self-control and justice. And so, Nadia Williams emerged from this ordeal stronger, respected, and with the certainty that her voice, her truth, and her honor could never be erased.